You will often hear bilingual people and polyglots say that while speaking different languages, they feel and think in different ways. It might seem that in virtue of speaking Mandarin, Arabic, or English, they are a different person. Does this subjective insight have a grounding in reality? Would it be possible to make more precise in what way a natural language produces such outstanding effects? The hypothesis that language determines thoughts and perceptions of its speakers is known as linguistic relativism. This idea can be spelled out in a number of ways, some of which rely on notions of structure while others are more concerned with semantical aspects. Some claims are rather weak and uninteresting, others definitely more exciting but quite hard to support. To exemplify one weaker claim, let's consider an uncontroversial dependence of language and thought. If you lack a word for a thing, you cannot think about the thing. Before the introduction in physics of the word electron, there were no thoughts about electrons. Clearly, it was not an in-principle impossibility, as the word has subsequently been introduced with corresponding thoughts attached. What linguistic relativism claims is way stronger. It does not concern specifically theoretical terms. It can be about words for the most common worldly phenomena as snow and colors. Moreover, it does not necessarily depend on the lack of a word making the corresponding thoughts not constructible. Let's consider meanings of equivalent words across different languages. Could there always be a loss in translation? Is there something that the German language itself makes possible to say that Japanese cannot convey and the other way around? How could this untranslatability work? The word cat is a perfectly fine example. We know that historically the animal had attached different associations: godly creatures for the ancient Egyptians, satanic creature for some Christians, and respected animal in Islam. Does this have anything to do with language? Are different languages determining thoughts and perceptions of cats? A rather simpler and obvious answer seems more plausible. Thoughts and perceptions of cats for different societal causes changed, but the word itself did not. It is just a tag for a worldly creature. How would this hypothesis even work? How could the words for cat in different languages encode those thoughts? Somehow in the meaning. The roughly equivalent words in different languages would need to have semantical commonalities but also departing from each other on other aspects. The more abstract the corresponding concept, the least implausible this thesis sounds. Saying that the Russian word for love means something different from the corresponding word in French is less implausible than saying the same for cat. How can we visualize different semantical encodings? A word is for this purpose a box containing characteristics that different languages assign to the roughly equivalent words. For linguistic relativism, there is nothing subjective about what goes in the box. At worst, it is a gradual intersubjective filling and emptying of boxes. This view is not uncontroversial or very plausible for a number of reasons. For starters, all the data is perfectly consistent with a simpler alternative model as already mentioned. All these differences in thought and perception are just that. People come to different beliefs about the world for complex causes and reasons, not because their content is already inscribed in the words themselves from the get-go. The alternative image is that of words as tags or labels lacking semantic depth. All they do is standing in a pointing relation to things, making all kinds of thoughts possible without determining it. The more cultures developed independently, the more likely their beliefs on all sorts of matters will diverge. The different languages are just one among many divergent cultural artifacts, but it does not possess some privileged explanatory status. In what way would language determine what we see? Here, like in the previous contentions, we can tackle weaker or stronger claims. A language with a richer vocabulary allows us to think of more things, to make finer distinctions, and makes it possible to have an interest in attending to them. Preconditions are not causes. Inuit way of life determines their interest in snow, Their language just follows suit. It is not the other way around. You build tools to perform a task. You don't perform a task because you accidentally stumbled upon a perfectly fitting tool. According to common scientific practice, other things being equal, a simpler explanation is to be preferred. This is even more so when the more complicated explanation does not offer much of an enlightening understanding of its target. The machinery needed to make sense of linguistic relativism is no less dubious than the mechanism that it purports to bring about the determination of thought by language. Alternative incompatible views of language are not only simpler, as we have seen, but also independently motivated.